What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you are doing well. So in this exciting comparison, like for like, I'm going to talk about Monad versus Sui or Sui versus Monad. And of course, if you're a returning legend, smash a like. Nansen have actually just announced a dashboard for Monad. Check out Nansen in the description. Welcome back to the channel. And I think this is a highly anticipated video for investors to know what the vibe is. And I'm telling you now, there are three similar layer ones: Monad, Say, Sui. I'm not doing a Say comparison. I'm doing a Sui comparison purely because of the way the project has been anticipated and some of the raise or the money that funds that they've raised in advance. So let's go through this head to head. Okay. So I'm going to start with a personal story about Sui. So when I got to know about the launch of Sui 2022, 2023, I was farming late 22, I was farming NFTs, and it was very disappointing when we did not have an airdrop, because the idea was to interact with it and buy NFTs and trade NFTs and all kinds of stuff for the testnet. Did all of that, did not get any rewards. However, Sui does remain one of my favorite layer one cryptocurrencies. Mr. Labs have done a brilliant job since the decentralization FUD that they've had in 2023. There was a time when you couldn't talk to anyone about Sui. Nobody wanted to touch Sui. All of a sudden, I bought a bag quite early, sold it cheap, of course, then had to buy back in at 74 cents, which still represents a very good entry for me. And up till today, it does remain as one of my biggest layer one convictions for multi-cycles. One of the reasons for that is for mass adoption. And this is where Monad comes in. High performance layer one blockchain that offers scale, of course, brilliant technology, and of course, sub-second finality. So it's trying to compete with Sui in terms of speed, finality. When it comes to these layer ones, we've seen the rebranding of Sonic. Sonic struggled quite a bit, although it was an older blockchain. We are seeing faster, initially designed for trading dexes and exchanges that Say, and now it's becoming more of an RWA play. And we are seeing this competition now with Monad. And one of the things looking at testnet is the amount of dApps that are absolutely incredible. And this is going to be fight for developers. Now, one of the main advantages, of course, here is the language code doesn't have to be moved. So immediately you have a wider pool of developers. But the entry is quite spectacular. So Sui right now is about 5 to 7 billion range. But if you look back, let me just refresh this from yesterday's video. And if you look at Monad's market cap right now, 349,642,884. This is very similar to what we saw. Of course, tokenomic design is way different, but 500 million or below seems to be a very good entry for these large layer ones. Volume, 500 million. So the volume is bigger than the market cap. The only issue that I have is it's very high, low float, high FDV, 3 billion from, fully diluted from 100 billion tokens. So these are a lot of tokens. And we must always remain cautious when we see stuff like this. But how do they really compare? So let's go head to head. And in my comparison, I'm looking at Sui's launch to Monad's launch 2023 to 2025. Okay. And what has the industry learned in the last 2 years about tokenomics design? Pretty much nothing, because they all come in as high float, low float, high FDV coins. However, interesting to note that they have both raised the similar valuations, with Sui being slightly larger and Monad, of course, not being that far behind. However, interestingly, Sui's valuation was 2 billion, whereas Monad is 3 billion, okay, on launch. 3 billion. So that's obviously the main striking difference. One is at 2 billion, very similar. So here I would say this is a draw, meaning that both projects are well backed, of course, and they have abundance of VC money. We know how that worked out for Sui. Could it be the same for Monad? The other difference is Monad's Coinbase launch mechanism. Okay, so it was launched on Coinbase's new launchpad. Okay, and it's interesting what they've implemented. So the mechanism here is that you buy X amount of Monad, okay, Mon, and you cannot sell it for a lockup period. Okay, so that was vastly different. And if you do sell it, there is a form of punishment. And you may ask what the punishment is. Okay, the punishment is future allocations, okay, FA of Coinbase Launchpad, okay, will be limited for you, or completely you would be eliminated. Now, this is pretty good because, of course, it's never been tried before where they are systematically punishing people who dump the token. Okay, now let's go through some of these comparisons. I think they are super interesting. One, 50% community first, community reserve. So very, very tight supply control. And what they had was 34% to the team conservative estimate, which is very high. And the public sale was very, very disappointing. This was like 22 million or 0.25 to the public. So this was at the time, people were like, okay, this is pure VC, but I can see ecosystem first. That gives them control on the tokenomics and the tokens. So that did not change inflation. It was still very inflationary. The only difference was Sui was eventually going to catch some wind, and it caught the hype. Okay. So by the time people found out, of course, Mr. Labs came. I remember the time when they came to Dubai. I actually saw them in an office. And they met the Dubai government, and they've done additional injection, because the issue here was the early FUD was all about decentralization. Okay, so this was Sui's early struggles when it was around this $300 to $500 million market cap and nobody wanted to buy it. Now let's take how Monad differs from this. And Monad is obviously public sale was 12x larger, which is pretty good, right? It's 12x larger. That is insane. So there was about 85,000 participants compared to Mr. Labs' limited access on Sui, and 7% of the tokens, 7.5%, were allocated to the public. The locked tokens cannot be staked. Anti-decentralization innovation. This is new. 46% to the team, investors. Massive criticism. And of course, only 38% to the ecosystem compared to Sui's. Now, what we can learn here is, of course, 12x. 12x on the exchange, on the public sale. They get a tick for that. The limited access, I think this is a lot more participation. They get a tick for that. Tokens to the public, again, they've offered more. Of course, maybe some people will diamond hand, but we did see initial charts. And then this is a very good, they get a massive win here. Anti-centralization, trying to make basically directly learning from what Mr. Labs have done. And this is a token that was delayed multiple times. So I am not the only one that 100% thinks they have learned those lessons. And that's what I was looking for. Okay. This is where they screw up. This is heavily centralized in terms of the even though it does appear that there's more to the public here, this is absolutely massive criticism. And this is one of the main FUD so far of this project. Okay. Because of the fact that they've got 46% to the team. That's insane. And investors. Okay, so you need to watch that. That's a warning. No matter how bullish you are, they do have 100 billion. And I was also critical of that as well. Why would you go with 100 billion tokens, right? This is insane. This is an insane number that you don't need to go with. So I do prefer the Sui Tokenomics. It's been out longer. However, because it's low float, high FDV, you are still technically getting in around that $500 million or less. Now, Launchpad performance, Sui did struggle. Yeah, at the time, Sui, is coming out of the bear market. People had other things to think about. Okay, so 4 TPS at launch, 18 TPS at 6 hours later. Node centralization, all their nodes were either in Germany or the US, and dropped 73% to 36 cents by October 2023. Now, Monad delivered here 10,000 TPS in testnet, 800 millisecond finality, and it was oversubscribed public sale. Still a bit of wishy-washy there, but I do believe that this number here is going to attract developers. Okay, so again, 18 TPS, 10,000 TPS, big difference, but this is lightning fast. So Sui, through Sui's speed of finality is some crazy stuff, but this is also going to be directly EVM compatible and incredibly fast. So what you have is the kind of Sui speeds over here, probably even slightly faster. Okay, so this is a very strong in terms of the speed. But of course, it would be oversubscribed because this has been in pre-sale for a long time. Okay, so don't fall for that marketing BS. We still need to be more critical. Now, key insight this isn't about which one is better. It's more about the strategic trade-off. Now, I can tell you right now, of course, due to the timing, market conditions, and the fact that we are still very early in terms of the life cycle of Monad, you have to make sure that Sui's prioritized long-term ecosystem growth has been absolutely true. And we have seen how they use their reserves. And these guys have prioritized broader distribution, right? But they still centralize the token. So Mr. Labs is obviously Sui is established. Okay. It's been around and it has stood the test of time. And of course, that will tell you about what their current market cap is as a form of value. Over here, what we have is a distribution over ecosystem allocation, which is pretty good as well in itself. And it's a newborn, right? This is a baby. So when you take the risk, you do understand that this could either go the Sonic way, even though that was a rebrand. It could go the linear way, right? These are some of the large, most anticipated launches that we've seen, or it could eventually go the Sui way. So I don't think you have to have one or the other. I think it's the valuation is very attractive in terms of the size of the market cap. Okay. Now the evolution is the industry has learned overall, and so should you, 4 critical lessons. Okay. Number 1, the public sales attract retailers. Lockup mechanisms. Okay. These are some of to prevent insider reward mechanism concentration. But what counters against that is the 46% of the insiders, right? So who are they trying to kid here? Monad, who are you trying to kid? Technical testing, this was good. Okay, before launch is non-negotiable. Now, of course, Sui had no issues with that as well. But I do believe Monad has also done an extensive testing period with lots of what I consider to be really good dApps, like integration of bots. So Monad does solve the retail access problem. Fine. It does actually have incredibly developer-friendly tools. Okay, so retail, if you wanted access, you have that now. The debate around the 27% or the 46% of insider allocation is going to be something that you need to watch with a nice pair of glasses and stay ahead of. Okay, because of course, Sui had 50% to the community reserves, advisory, and of course, and the launch was slightly rockier than what Monad have done. Okay, for crypto builders, tokenomics are your go-to kind of marketplace strategy. Choose wisely between ecosystem distribution and optimize. You can't optimize for both. I think that's absolutely spot on. And again, I'm asking the question, what are your thoughts on Monad and the Sui approach? They are both fantastic layer ones. I do believe, I'm going to be buying and holding Sui even throughout the bear market. And at some point, I am going to establish a key level for Monad. Now, if you want to see the chart, Monad USDT is, the chart looks different to what it does over here. Let's just say that. Because this is, again, this industry is together. And look at the way they present the information. You would think that this is the strongest chart, up 29%. Of course, like I said to you, the real picture is different because at some point, this thing went all the way up on launch to crazy prices that we've not seen before. Again, look at that, 18 cents. Came all the way down and right now trading for 3 cents. Remember, when you value these things, you value them at 100 billion tokens. So the more it comes down, yeah, I don't mind. I'll stack some more. Are you buying? Are you watching? Do let me know. Like the video. This is a very important video. Great content. Give me a like, give me a follow, give me a subscribe. I have given you my own impartial opinions about this token. I'm very interested in it. At the moment, I haven't bought into it yet. Why? Because of the previous video about the macro. Good luck, take care, and keep this on your watch list. God bless.